Okay, so it is 4:08. Call to order. Okay,
I'll do roll call. Apparently this is my new thing. Heather Berkowitz, present. Chris Chang,
Not present.
Rita Clinthorne,
Present.
Steve Hurt,
Present.
Steve Kern,
Here.
Patrick McLaughlin,
Here.
Thomas Morris.
Here.
Roy Townsend. He's absent. Liz Wiseman.
Yeah.
John Reiser.
Present.
All right, very good. So the next thing we'll do is the adoption of the agenda.
I'll move adoption.
Support. Oh, already is. Support.
One thing I'd like to do is introduce our stewards right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we had that on here or not. Oh, we
Did we
do.
approve our minutes? Did we approve our minutes?
I'm sorry.
Minutes comes on. After. Oh.
Do you guys mind if we just squeeze in
I'm sorry, I'm looking at.
the introduction of
No,
the our stewards?
No.
So if you guys want to come up to this table even. Okay, this is John and Jansen. They are new stewards. Yeah, you can just. Do you guys want to sort of give everyone a little introduction of yourselves?
Sure.
What brings you here?
So my name's John Hocking. Just started as a park steward here on May 30th. And me and Jansen have both been working together to maintain the parks, and we've been having a great time doing it. One thing that got me interested in this position was I basically have grew up most of my life here, and I spent a good portion of the time exploring the parks and stuff like that. So it's been a great opportunity to be able to give back to the parks and be able to work in them.
So I'm Jansen. I'm also a resident. I live just a couple seconds down the road. I'm a third year environmental studies and sustainability student at State MSU. And then I don't know. I figured something like this was local, very easy to get to, and make a difference somewhere I call home. So that's why I got interested in this.
And just to give us some, should we introduce ourselves?
Sure.
Oh, I'm Liz Wiseman. I'm actually from the Land Preservation Commission of Sydney.
Steve Kern, local resident.
Steve Hurt, local resident.
They know me, I'm the kind of the interim
Yeah.
arts director, so I see them every day, and of course our.
And they know me too. I'm Rita
Progress, and they've
Clinthorne.
been doing a great job,
Yeah.
both did a great job.
I'm Rita, I'm the chair.
I'm Heather Berkowitz, a resident and secretary for committee.
And I'm John Reiser. I'm the Board of Trustees rep to this committee.
And my name is Patrick McLaughlin.
Tom Morris.
And
Nice to meet you.
that way if you run into us in the park.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to remember all the names.
Yeah, there will be a list. Yeah, yeah. Real briefly, can you give us like what parts you've been working in the most or?
Sure, yeah. So as you guys have probably noticed, it's been a very warm and wet summer so far, so there's been a lot of growth in lots of the parks. Kind of our main three focuses as of right now have been the new soon-to-open Park Van Curler. We've also been working a lot on Liberty Pond, and then Sloan Preserve as well has been a main focus for us, as those have overgrown the most this spring and need the most work to get them back to walkability and make sure you're not getting slapped in the leg by different plants, and being able to have it be enjoyable to walk.
And I did walk Van Curler the other day and I was really happy that I could go through the prairie.
Yes, the prairie has been an ongoing project for us, because it's growing almost just as fast as we can cut it. We might end up making it slightly wider so we don't have to do maintenance quite as often. And then just yesterday, we did the very back loop of Van Curler as well, because that was becoming overgrown as well.
That would be the south side.
South side by Huron River, correct. Yes.
What are you finding are your biggest challenges? Is it just literally the amount of space you have to cover, the lack of maybe proper equipment, just time in the day? There's only two of you. It could be.
We have plenty of equipment to work with. Some of the issues with that, though, is that some of the locations that we need to bring that equipment to is covered in roots and rocks and stuff that larger equipment can't get to. So for example, in the back of Sloan, there's a loop there that we can't bring out like a large mower to, so we have to do most of our work with weed whackers and tools like that, which makes the process just a lot longer in general. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but in the end of the day, we have two of us and we can work together and get it done. Other than that, like I said, it's just the quick growth and lots of invasives that we've been trying to keep down as well. We have a kind of a 6 main invasives that we try to focus on because there's so many. And yeah, other than that, it's been a straightforward and we enjoy doing it.
So with Sloan, what you're talking about is what we call an island, where you have to go across the creek. Is that
Yeah,
right?
That's one of the areas, yeah, so it's almost impossible to get anything back there, especially after rains like this where the creek is basically impassable. So that's kind of an ongoing project. That back loop there has been a struggle to been able to work on.
And it would be nice to have a walking bridge, wouldn't it?
It would,
Yeah.
that would make, and we can get equipment back there, cause balancing across that creek
Be
with
difficult.
the weed whackers and stuff like that is sometimes impossible.
So note to self, that's something we were hoping, we'll talk about it later. Great, anything else?
We're glad to meet you. Thank you
Yeah.
for everything you're doing
Thanks.
and all the hard work.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to help.
Very good.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to stick around, and you're welcome to, if you're done with your day, if you'd like to just walk out, you can, but you're welcome to stick around for the meeting if you'd like.
Gotcha, yeah, we have to just do one more thing outside of here, so I think we are going to hit the road, but it's been wonderful to meet all you guys. Hope to see you guys in the future as well.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
And I did have a request to sign outside. I met someone in the park. Okay. Now it's time for public comment. This is the time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the PPPC.
Seeing hands raised.
How about in the home?
Would you like to introduce yourself to the board? Some people might not know who you are.
Thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
I'm Judy Monk, a resident of Scio, and I am running for the trustee position. There's one open position and 3 that are looking to be retained. So I'm hoping to pursue that and support Scio in any way I can in good governance. Thank you. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Oh, sure. Great. With that, let's move on to the TE, the approval of the minutes. And,
I move their approval. I can support them.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Great. Move on to reports. Do you have anything to report as far as parks? I think you know more at this point than I do.
Well, we just introduced the park stewards. I can give you a kind of a quick update on the parks director position. It's still targeting the July 23rd start date.
Okay.
So pending, background check, yes, we think the 23rd we'll have our new parks director on board. I would also, I don't know if this is the time to mention that I did have a brief discussion with Rhea regarding the Van Curler Prairie update. I do have, at least we've got Michigan Wildflower on board as far as what their consultation fees are and their seed mixes. We are hoping to hear from Borneman's group regarding the burn. And Rhea is also putting together, her contract for the township. And once we get those items, we will schedule it for an upcoming Board of Trustees agenda, hopefully for approval.
Great. That's
Yeah.
progress.
So it's moving.
It's likely to go on the consent agenda since we heard the detailed presentation. So this is just really getting the details in a row with respect to the contracts and the employment and all that.
Great.
And what is the name of the new park structure?
I know her first name is Heather.
Heather Schmeggy, I wanna say Schmeggy,
Yeah.
I want to, SCHMIEGE, maybe.
Yeah.
So would you want to say it one more time?
phonetically?
H
What?
Heather.
SCH?
Yeah, got that part.
Oh,
I have it in my notes too somewhere,
That's,
in the stack.
I'm spelling it like that.
I won't get- I'll butcher it too. I tried to pronounce it.
well,
That's what I heard,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. She was introduced, the board introduced her, opened the board.
Oh,
Great.
would it be just automatic that she would come to our next meeting, or should we ask her to come?
I think that's part of her.
What, our next meeting is what, August, for that second meeting, August? There's a chance she's going to start, but she's already negotiated that she already had a pre-approved vacation, so she may not be at the next meeting,
Oh, okay.
but for sure the following meeting in September. So
Okay.
she will be here in July 23rd, but it's my understanding she may be taking off the beginning part of August.
Okay.
Good to know.
Well, it'll be the 14th, our next meeting.
Yeah, so there's a chance. I
Okay.
don't know the exact
Okay.
dates.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Should we go on to the parks? I would like to update about the future play space, but there's really, everything is kind of quiet right now.
Mhm.
We're sort of, and you might know more about this too, since you're in the house. What's going on with the township hall, the design, for the parks.
The
We had a
DDA,
couple
you mean?
of, we have the
I
DDA.
we have a rep from the DDA, because they met on Monday. If anybody that was in the DDA, they may have a better update. I can tell you, I've been in contact with Freer Construction at Van Curler. Van Curler sign's been delivered. I'm gonna have them install it. I'm gonna have them install both signs, the entrance to Scio Township Hall Park and to Van Curler Park. He's also got the logs that we want for the play space out at Township Hall Park. He's gonna drop those off. I have a spot picked out, but I do wanna run it by you, Rita, just because he said those logs are heavy. Once they're set, they're not moving for a long time. So I have a spot picked out in Township Park, but I wanna run it by you, because I think once they're delivered, they're there until we actually start doing the playscape.
Okay, and we'll just have them deliver whole logs, not
Yes,
cut anything.
yep,
Okay.
whole logs, and we'll have to, he said, place them off the ground because they will start to rot quickly. So we'll get something, I'm sure, back there,
Okay.
our utilities tool room, and we'll get them off the ground, but I'll show you where I'm thinking about placing them.
Okay.
I was just curious about that. I mean, somebody's gonna have to come back, no matter where they're placed, and pick them back up to put them where we want them in the final design, right?
Cut them up.
Yep,
Cut them out, do all that.
Mhm.
And with the DDA's architectural sort of plan coming to fruition at some point, does it make sense to keep the logs out of that sort of working area? And I don't know, is there a spot out here that?
I kind of looked at that spot.
Oh, okay.
I think where I'm looking at is more towards the flyer field, but I will confirm with you, Rita, if it's going to be out of the way, that it's not gonna cause any issues. It'll be closer to where we think that playscape area is going to be.
Okay, my main worry is if we
Right.
finally do get traction and we start digging a hole for a sand pit and some other things, but yet the logs are,
Yeah.
by mistake, they're put right where we want something else. That would just delay everything even more, so that's all. Okay.
Yep, I'll confirm.
My idea was to get them somewhere on the other side of that gate,
That's where
so
I'm
they
thinking.
are not stolen. That has happened before where,
If Mr. Freer has to bring a truck to bring them over, they might get stolen,
Well,
I guess.
I don't know who
we've
would, but
had wood stolen, we've had material
I just
stolen.
heard of somebody going around Southfield and stealing rocks, like big rocks out of commercial businesses.
For landscaping purposes.
Yeah, for landscaping, they
Wow.
don't wanna, the guy didn't wanna buy them, so he just went around and stole them.
Wow.
So it
Yeah,
happened, apparently it
okay,
happens.
there you go.
I think
Alright.
it'll be out of the way.
All right.
See, if it's a place where it's not where the proposed future pavilion is going to be, where the playscape,
Okay.
and it won't interfere with traffic or the flyer, so it seems like a good spot, but I'll wait for Rita's, to take a look and confirm that this is an acceptable place to leave them, because they could be there for the next 6 to 12 months.
And we
So-
probably should meet with utilities and I
Yeah.
don't know who.
Can I ask, are we talking about the natural play space as proposed or envisioned by Eagle Scout Brandon Brulette? Or are we talking about a natural play as potentially envisioned by Michigan Recreation Construction, or are those kind of the same thing now, or?
The only thing I can think of is that somehow we're gonna weave that together. Does that sound right?
Well,
It feels like it's gonna be woven together somehow.
it sounds like that's
It won't
how
be
it is progressing,
So
yes.
I'm taking a little TBD away from that.
Okay,
That's, you know.
exactly.
And are the flyers still a part of this plan?
Yes.
They are, yeah, like their field is, they're gonna be able to fly.
As far as I know, yes.
I
Okay.
mean, for now, I mean, there may be DDA if they were had a representative. I know there's been discussion of possible soccer fields.
I
Whether they
know,
can still
I
use
know.
it as
So I
part
just
of
wanna- I wanna
the
advocate for
flyers.
Flyers.
Yeah.
Well, right now, we're not talking about soccer fields or
Yeah.
flyers, we're talking about big logs in the woods.
Yes.
The nature
Yeah.
place,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's not.
We are, and it's moved into how, what you're now talking about. And I guess the whole thing about the flyers too, by the way, is not just soccer fields, but we've said this before. When the play space is finally done, I'm concerned, I know we all would be concerned, if it's somehow in the flight path of the flyers, because we don't have to be on, let's call it the flyers field or the soccer field. You could just be in the flight path of a plane landing, and that's not a safe place to be. So we still need to work out that bit of hornet's nest.
There's, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking it might be, playing fields and flyers and have some kind of schedule worked out.
Sure, that's one way to do it, I suppose, yeah.
How do you all know the flyers? Do you know any of them?
Upstates is
Upstarts is a member.
a member.
Do they just go out on occasion?
I've met some.
Oh, no, they have a
I've met
schedule, that was in the Scio Township newsletter, it was a blurb on the,
really?
yeah, there was one on the flyers, and they have a schedule, and they have rules, you know, about not flying at this time or that time, and it's a certain, and it seems like, of course, it's mostly daytime where kids would be out playing in the play space, so maybe there's a way to adjust, you know, something to not have that be problematic.
Was it recently in the newsletter? I don't
Yeah,
think
this
the
is this
newsletter-
latest one that just came out a
Okay,
couple days ago.
Okay, I'll
You
look.
want it, Judy Monk's looking at?
I'm looking to see.
Yeah,
where-
that one.
Sure.
It's on the lower left of one of the pages.
So another thing that might be the case is that it might be, people can go into the
Page
park
3 maybe.
if they accept the responsibility that the flyers are flying. I mean, that's how it probably has been.
Yeah, because it's not only the children. Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Those are like, they fly like
I think you got it,
pretty
right?
sophisticated, you know, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
feel like
fast
it's, there's gonna be some massive plane failure or something for them to like take a kid out. I mean, they're, you know,
Right.
they're pretty.
I understand, but you know,
Controlled, I feel like.
since, oh, of course, I totally expect that they would be awfully safe and know exactly what they're doing. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
But to your point, Steve, you may recall this, Rita, when we initially did the path all the way around, there was a wreckage of a plane there.
oh, well, okay.
You recall it? Yeah. So I mean, it's not,
It happens.
It's not impossible,
Yeah.
highly unlikely, but not impossible, that's
Is the
all.
play space, it's going on the other side of the pathway, like, correct, like by the, just
When you walk
Closer to
through the
the
gate.
buildings.
closer to the buildings, right?
Here.
Like, okay, so then
Well, the
the,
flyers don't fly.
yeah, the flyers are on the are in the
Right.
field, right? They're on the other side.
They are, I'm only talking about the flight path, and I don't know
Yeah.
a darn thing about their flight paths
Right.
at all, I'm just
Right.
saying, let's be aware
Well, and
that
kids
it
are
could
kids and they
be.
can run out in the field, you know.
Or
so-
not even in the field, just if a
Sure.
plane is supposed to be coming in at 70 feet, and for whatever reason, the battery dies on the controller, and now it's in the play space, I don't know, let's just be aware, that's all.
Oh, this is we've talked about this for years. That's been part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had some things written down, but I can't think of anything else, any other updates. But I did when we mentioned Sloan and the island, I don't know how many, if everyone's aware, I'm sure most of you are. There's the creek and one thing, Anna, I'm pretty sure it was in the budget for this year was to try to get at least some engineering done about trying to figure out what we can do to get across the creek. Because it's not doable for just everybody. So that's something that we probably could. I don't know if we can talk about that next time. I don't know if we can even get it done this year.
That's a big ticket item too, I would
It's kind
suspect.
of a big ticket item, but boy, it would be nice to, if we could get the engineering started, but maybe it has to wait till next year now. which
So
is too
across
bad.
Mill Creek?
I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's
it is
Mill
Mill
Creek,
Creek,
yeah.
Because right now that you have to go over stones and it's,
And how long's the span?
I have not measured.
It's
I
not,
could give
it's
it-
not very far, but it's very slippery.
Would you give it 20 feet?
Yeah.
Bank to bank
Well,
seems
Steve,
like
could
about 20.
something like the boardwalk in Devine, would that be too, it's too narrow?
I believe Anna ran into a situation where if a stream will float a log,
Uh-huh.
then that's considered to be a certain
Oh.
category as
Yeah.
far
Navigable.
as
I'm
kind of great.
thinking, is this like an Eagle thing, or is this a Water Resource Commission?
I think it's really like what they have at the
Yeah.
botanical gardens. I have lots of pictures of bridges I've been taking pictures of from different projects all around Washtenaw County and then. But I'm not sure that we're ready to have that conversation. We could do it next time, maybe put it on the agenda and really talk about that.
That's good.
And I don't know how late in the year you can do engineering for that. I don't think it has to be summer. I'm just talking about getting some research done or something.
Clarify a little bit, it is not Mill Creek proper, it's a branch of Mill Creek.
Okay.
It creates an
Yeah,
island
Mill
that is
Creek.
part of Scio. So it's much smaller than the actual
Okay,
main branch.
It's not the full flow.
all right, that's doable.
Yeah, I think it is doable. I know, so, and there might be grants that we can get, or we might be able to get, is it Ducks Unlimited? Who's fishes out there? Not ducks, Ducks Unlimited.
Fly fishing,
Trout,
Troutman?
something like that.
Something, I don't know, but the fishing people, they go across there. So maybe, we remember. So we have to remember that.
Okay,
Okay, we have to remember that, Steve.
yeah, you bet, it's locked in.
Okay, all right. That's all I have. All right, planning. Planning. Is that you, John?
Planning, we did not meet on Monday night, so nothing to report. No agenda, no meeting.
All right, planning preservation.
One of our members resigned, and we have, I understand, last night, a new member of land preservation has been approved. So she'll join us tomorrow. Daryl Burkhardt is her name. There is a township sustainability fair on October the 6th from noon to 4 in the Myers parking lot, if y'all are interested in that.
What's the date again?
October the 6th at noon, begins at noon, so that afternoon. And last year we had that in the fire station on Halloween, and it was hard to get people out of the fires, but we had it in Township Hall in the, like, back here, where the garage is. But the Halloween festivities were in the fire station, so everyone went to that, but it was really hard to get them back to the sustainability fair. So this year it's in the parking lot at Myers, so it should reach more people. Last meeting, Richard Andrus of Honeybee UK, he gave a little presentation on his long-term plans for the April Farm, which is at the corner of Zeeb and Scio Church. And so he's accumulated a lot of wood products there, you may have seen that. And he plans to use those for soil enrichment and to kind of direct rainwater to where he wants it to go on the site. So he's going for a perennial polyculture there, is his goal. And the last thing I would say is that our consultant, Barry Lonick, has completed all his spring monitoring of conserved properties, and so we're good on that. He does that twice. Okay, so that's us,
Great.
yeah.
Great. And roads.
Real quick question for Chris, I forgot, just as far as the bathrooms are going, any progress on that?
Yeah, we've had some progress in the sense that I've been dealing with Phoenix contractors who do have a bid. Before we move it forward, we're waiting to get some additional information before moving on to the board of trustees, because it's really gonna be up to them if they want to move forward. So we're waiting on getting confirmation that's scheduled for a board of trustee meeting.
Okay.
So it's pending.
Okay, gotcha, thanks.
Roads, Roy is not here, so did not send anything. that I'm aware
Zeeb Road is done. That's my roads report.
of.
I can give a little bit just from I was speaking with a member from the roads commission. They're gonna start next week on Jackson Road,
Yes.
going westbound from base camp up to approximately the entrance to Lowe's. So they said that'll take probably 6 to 8 weeks, so.
Repaving it?
What's that?
Repaving?
Yes. Mhm.
Whoa, digging up concrete?
I believe it's a repave, I don't think it's remilling, I think it's a repave, yeah, so people are going westbound.
Is that, no, yeah, well, okay, I'm just curious, that seems like that was what, 15 years ago the boulevard was put in, I'm guessing, I'm bad at timing, but anyway, I mean, there's holes and cracks and things, but whole repaving, wow,
I believe that's the case, yes.
okay.
And RAC is meeting after this meeting, for those who'd like to, at 6:30, Roads Advisory Committee will be meeting at 6:30 since it was rescheduled from the previous July 3rd, the holiday week.
Okay, back to play space, I'm not sure exactly, there's nothing,
You haven't, yeah,
there you have it.
has Brendan contacted you
He
about
has not,
anything?
and I probably should do that, so I'm the adult, but you
Oh,
know,
well,
it's just, I feel like we're sort of in flux with all this.
Yeah,
yeah. MRC and DDA.
Sure.
You know, so what can I talk to Brendan about, how can we steer him, or
yeah.
I can touch base and just, but maybe I'll try.
Well, I thought
I'll
the
try to
last
do
was,
that.
he was going to get back to us with some dimensions he was gonna take and maybe an idea or two or something.
Right.
But he must have an idea that it's not gonna be finished on us.
I will touch base with him before we meet.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's see, where are we here? And the DDA.
Does the DDA have any need or desire to report what their architect finds to you, or do they go directly to the board? I mean, they can write the check, so that maybe they can just keep the information and not bother to tell anybody, or what obligation do they
I'd
have?
like them to attend.
What I understand is, the way our last meeting, Bob States was going to make sure that we all,
Okay,
whoever attended the meeting, you were there for a minute?
I wasn't at the DDA.
We weren't,
meeting, no.
okay. Roy and I were there, and
well, we had
we're
a
supposed to make sure.
subcommittee meetings, the two of us
Right.
got together, yeah. Is
But
that the
when
one
we
you're
met
talking
with
about?
the architects,
Oh, yeah, we
doing the
did,
design.
right, yeah.
They're doing conceptual designs, and we were there, and he said that he would be sure to forward
Good,
any
okay. I forgot that he
communications.
said that, yeah.
So, I mean, I could always touch base with him because I thought it was the end of June that they were going to have
Seems like it's been a
something,
while,
but
yeah,
maybe it's early July.
okay.
Still-
Those are conceptual designs for what?
Oh, for Township Hall Park.
Oh,
So that's sort of how that's playing out now, is that the DDA asked for that to have it. And so we're sort of
Working
in the
along.
loop on that.
Yeah.
And we know that the nature play space, we want that to be part of that.
oh,
So-
okay, I see.
Okay. But I don't have anything to report. I haven't heard anything. Okay, all right. Shall we move on to new business? And
Barry is with us. We also have Dave Clutton here also.
Steve Letton, do you want to come up to this table? We'll try to pull up Barry Lonnie. So I think we talked about this a little bit last time, that Sloan, there are like two parts of Sloan, and in the middle is land that's contaminated with arsenic. And so we don't own that property and it's kind of landlocked. Apparently they don't have a way to get in. We talked about this, right?
We did.
So, Dave Lutton and Bonnie, Barry Lonick are gonna kind of give us a little more
Great.
information.
Ready?
We can't see you, Barry, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
And you're too loud.
So I think many of you know that we bought the Sloan Preserve in two pieces, the original 33 acres surrounding the garden center. And then we bought a 17-acre piece to the north of that for a total of 50 acres. We excluded about 21 acres from those purchases many years ago because there was the arsenic contamination that was discovered on that site long time ago, 15 years ago or more. The owners of the 21 acres, which also owned the large parcel, 137 acres or so on the east side of Baker, do retain ownership of, I think it's about 100 foot of frontage on the west side of Baker Road, over which we have an access easement to get between the two pieces of the preserve that we purchased many years ago. And that was put in there just for their own future access interests for whatever that might entail. Fast forward to the present here, Mr. Lutton and his associates have some proposals on the table for development of some of the land on the east side of Baker and conservation of some of that as well. And part of their proposal is to remediate the 21 acres from the arsenic contamination. And Dave will tell you more about that process, but there has been a request to cross the Sloan Preserve west of the garden center to access the southern part of the 21 acres, which is where the highest concentration of the arsenic contamination is located. And by the way, to my knowledge, nobody's ever figured out where the arsenic contamination came from. The best suspicion that we have is that the topsoil in that area was scraped off and piled up. And in order to access the gravel that was underneath that area, which was excavated, apparently used for the construction of Interstate 94 back in the 50s or so. And so we just think that naturally occurring arsenic in the upper soil layers were just piled up and concentrated in piles over in that part of the property. So access to that area is what's been requested. Dave can say more about that. So that's just a little background and history on things. If we've got any questions, I'm happy to answer those. I've got to dash off to another meeting in about 20 minutes. So if there's anything for me, if you could hit it now, that'd be great.
Didn't we last, when we actually had a map to look at, realize or recognize, or someone found where there's what Barry was just talking about, the access just next to Lotus, that there's actually another point of access that does not need for crossing over township land. Is that correct, Barry?
That is correct. That's the 100 foot or so on the west side of Baker that the owners retained ownership of, over which we have the access easement. The challenge with that is a couple of things. One is that in order to get to the southern part of the 21 acres from that location would mean hacking through a bunch of vegetation on the 21 acres and then crossing a swale that runs through the property, which currently does not have a culvert or any other means across it. There's a fairly steep slope that would have to be driven over and access through there. Whereas the area west of the garden center, over that same swale, had a culvert placed in it long time ago. And so, and there's like a 2-track road that goes back there into and through the preserve. And then ultimately to the southern part of the 21 acres. It's just a much shorter and easier, less expensive access to get to the contaminated area.
Okay, thanks. Were we not also concerned then about after, if that was approved, that you'd have to put it back the way it was?
So, and maybe Mr. Letton can speak to some of that. Some of our concerns were, how is what is the process for the mediation? What process are they planning to use, or are you planning to use, whoever's doing it? But what about restoring the property back? I don't know what all you're gonna have to do, but what can you do to fix it when you're done?
Well, I don't have all those answers yet, but we are waiting. We have done the mapping, and my understanding is that the concentration of arsenic is roughly 4 acres out of the 21 acre site, where, as Barry described, land was disturbed and piled and so forth. Our intention is to remediate by covering the area in question, and that probably will include some planting of whatever the appropriate plants are. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think it is our intention to return it to a natural state. The AKT Peerless is the environmental engineer working on this. I've been a little disappointed at the speed with which they're working, and but I expect we'll begin to see their plan and more answers that I'm giving you today fairly soon. We ran into vacation schedules and other things, and so we haven't seen that yet. But because the use, the highest use of the preserve would be people walking trails and so forth, we're told that the covering methodology is the appropriate methodology. The arsenic is dangerous only if you come in physical contact with it, and so burying it and restoring the natural area is our plan. Barry, would you add anything to that?
No, I just want to make sure everybody's clear that the intention is that we will acquire this property if the remediation is successful. Dave's got his own consultants. It's certainly possible that we will engage the consultant that we typically utilize for environmental assessments on properties, just to review the plan that has been presented to us by Dave's consultant, and tweak it as necessary. But the idea is that we will acquire those 21 acres once it's been remediated and add it to the preserve.
This would unify the preserve. You've got two pieces with us in the middle. Barry, we have an application into the Land Preservation Commission for plus or minus 110 acres, so approximately 90 on the east side of Baker Road. And this would be part of that same acquisition by the LPC.
Correct.
So is there no removal of the arsenic? It's only just adding dirt to cover? Is that basically the strategy?
That's my understanding.
And I'll just note that that's a lot less expensive than removing. So it makes sense to me that that's the offer. I'm just wondering if the public is gonna be walking trails in there. You know, my view is that we did not wanna tell people stay on these trails or else, because you'll get, there's arsenic in this area. So I don't know that that is I mean, I hear what you're saying, that you've been advised that it's adequate. I just wonder if that's right.
AKT Peerless has done this before in recreational areas, I believe. And again, we're waiting to see their plan. I don't wanna say what I don't know yet.
Yeah.
So, what I'm thinking is that, we're an advisory board to the Board of Trustees. So, but what I would like to see before you even ask us to give you that recommendation to the board is I would like to see a little more information, like how deep is this covering it gonna be? And, maybe some science to back that up a little bit. I'm not an arsenic and, expert, but I think if we, and maybe some maps, we can work with Barry. Maybe Barry can help us do a visual so that.
Well, there will be, I think, visuals as part of the plan and specifications as well as to cover and so forth. So, and Barry and I have been in conversation regarding this parcel for years. We are, one thing I'll tell you, I have worked for 24 years since the first Washtenaw County millage for land preservation was passed. I'm a member of the advisory committee that recommends to the county parks what land gets preserved. We've preserved over 10,000 acres, I believe, at this point. I've walked a million sites. I'm sensitive to the issues that you're all concerned about as well. And our intention is to do this right. Obviously, I don't want to spend money that I don't need to spend. And so I guess I would say when we have the plan, Barry will have it, and it'll be certainly open for discussion.
And my concern for how deep how much soil you would cover it with is if in 15 years from now, someone decides that, oh, we have this land, why don't we grow edibles here? Why don't we grow apples or something like that? Some of these things are pretty good at uptaking arsenic. So, I would just want to know that so we all know what's going on here. Like, is this a place where we don't do something like that? We don't plant.
Institutional memory is important, and the township would need to have that kind of a record. I'm aware of development properties where this kind of method has been done, and there is signage posted advising the public what not to do. And certainly growing crops of any kind would fall into that. So.
And again, we're an advisory board, so I think this is something that, it would be great if you could show us more what the plan is, really, so that we can see where it is and understand and exactly the path and, your plan for even just remediation of the site with the preserve itself. But I think that, it's a board decision, right, John?
Yes.
Where,
Yeah,
we're sort of the
well,
practice.
It's something the board would obviously consult with.
Yeah.
But, they would take into mind recommendations from LPC and PPP and consult ultimately with their township attorney regarding easements and any conditions there too, and what's it gonna do to the land? The board is probably gonna wanna know, like this body and like the LPC is, what's the best way to remediate arsenic that might be naturally occurring, if at all possible? How do you do that safely? The best way, is it to remove the worst, cap the rest, and says are there environmental engineers who make that recommendation? I'm not in a position to say what that is, so I don't wanna.
But we have connections to environmental engineering.
No, I appreciate that. So I ultimately, that's gonna be, how do you do it and why do you do it that way? I think that's gonna be the ultimate.
So is that more or less the question you have for your engineers, what John just said? How, is that kind of the scope of what you're trying to do?
My expectation is that the plan AKT Peerless is preparing will cover that, the gist of what John just said.
Great, okay, that'd be extremely helpful. And then I know you've been frustrated by their timeline, so you can't really predict, but next month, 2 months, 'cause we'd love to see.
I would expect before September, we'll have the plan, yeah. And I certainly hope it's sooner than that.
Sure.
So.
And John, oh, excuse me.
No,
John, to follow up on what you said, would the township then have its own environmental site assessment person say, you know, evaluate the plan?
I mean, we could, that'd be a discussion we'd have to have, whether, you know, and if so, is it out of PPP budget, LPC budget as part of our doing? Ultimately, this is land that I think he wants us to purchase out of LPC funds so that we can join our two parcels and they become two disparate, become one happy large parcel that's
Yeah.
arsenic free or
So that would
safe from
be-
arsenic.
Yeah.
That's the plan,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so environmental site assessment for the parcel would make sense from the land preservation.
I think we probably have to.
And you know, another thing I'm just a little bit concerned about is the arsenic, if you, like, how much would you leave there and would it affect the groundwater? Because it does have the creek going through, but is that something that we have to, that figures into this, like?
Barry, are you still on?
I am, and I'll say a couple things there. There were extensive studies done of the entire property for a long ago development proposal that did not come to fruition. But I think it was Atwell that did extensive soil studies, and that's where the arsenic contamination was discovered, you know, 15 or 17 years ago, or whatever that was. And so, and the arsenic doesn't move very much, and so those data are still valid. So we know where the contamination is located.
And we have privy to those studies, I mean.
Yeah, do we have those
Helpful to the
studies,
board?
Barry?
What do you mean by we? I have.
I mean, do you have, I mean, we have access to those to look at them? I
Yeah.
thought- Okay.
Yes, Barry has them, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say was that back when we were looking at purchasing originally the entire property, and these issues came up, we had tests done of the water in the ponds that are there on the map that you can see, and the sediments in those ponds. And fortunately, those didn't have any arsenic showed up in them. So it appears to be that the arsenic is being retained within the soil, the surface soils, and not migrating out of there. At least as of 15 years ago, that was the case.
Yeah, that was my question, that there is a pond in that 21-acre parcel.
Yeah, if you're, I'm looking at at Chris's screen here, and you can see where the creek comes through and where it divides and creates that island out there. And you can see that kind of long, narrow pond adjacent to the creek, kind of parallel to the creek.
sure, so they can see it at home, but you can't see it on these screens, so I've got it, they can see it at home. Barry can see it, but I can't get it on these screens, unfortunately, to show you.
Yeah, so there is this kind of long, narrow pond.
Yeah, if you know something that.
It's not natural in the sense that the stream bed is natural. It was probably excavated for gravel, back in the day, and so that's where we tested the water and the sediments in that pond, and they came up negative back in the day.
So is that the pond where there's been a lot of beaver activity in the past? Not that.
I don't know.
Barry, you're a guy.
Because there is a pond right there, close to the Sloan property, where there is some beaver activity, but I'm not sure where this pond is, so.
Yeah, it runs basically parallel. It's parallel to the stream bed east of it, and the beaver activity is much more recent. So the pond predates the beavers. They may be utilizing it somehow, but they didn't create it like they often do.
Barry, do you know, I suppose every remediation is different, has different details, topography, everything, but is there some kind of formula, there must be, to determine if you do 7 acres of cover, or 7 inches of cover versus 20 inches of cover? Is there kind of a lifespan to remediation that we can count on? Would an engineering firm be able to tell us that?
Well, not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that it's intended to be a permanent solution. You cover it with, whatever layer of clean material, and then you don't have to worry about it again, unless there's some excavation or something
So
else.
as you roll heavy equipment in and out of there, is it possible, how do they determine that, arsenic isn't caught up in the tracks and the tires and the wheels of the trucks moving in and out, and it's being spread, by mistake through the access points?
Great questions, and hopefully those will be answered in the plan that is being produced.
Okay.
Great questions.
But the restoration date would be the 4 acres that you propose covering and the track, the road that you develop going in and out, right? All of that. As far as replanting and,
Yes.
okay, that's what you know now.
We're all waiting to see the plan.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, thank you.
I got to believe there's protocols for this kind of thing. It's this is not a unique situation. As Dave said, this firm has done other site remediations, and so.
Barry, does this fall under Eagle?
I think it does. It's a great question also.
And I didn't bring it up earlier, but my recollection from discussions with AKT Peerless is that this will be supervised and approved by Eagle. And so there's a layer of protection for the township and the public.
I think both because of the extent of the contamination, but also it's adjacent to a state natural river, and within the floodplain. So they would be interested.
Okay.
So Dave, Peerless is your environmental engineer?
Yeah.
And subject to Eagle approval. Is your purpose here today in just kind of broaching us, giving us a heads up, or asking us for an action item, or this is coming?
I thought that Chris requested of our whole project engineer that somebody show up and talk about this because you had talked about it at your last meeting.
Okay, just kind of a status update, really.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There were 5 questions that we haven't talked about. We may have touched on them, but Chris, you got the answers both from Barry and from Tom Covert at Midwestern Consulting. I saw the email, so I believe you got them. I think you were in that chat.
Well, if I do, I'm happy to share them with the PPP also.
Yeah.
So what's your time?
Plus or minus June 18th, 20th, somewhere in there, these answers were floating around.
My apologies. What's your timing? When do you anticipate having a recommendation back of what should be done and what permits and what approval should be sought and all that? You have some sense of that?
As I said earlier, I think certainly by September, I hope to have the plan in hand. And we will be sharing it with Barry when we get it.
So I missed the past 2 meetings. Maybe I want to understand the context of this better. Is this driven by the township's desire to have that piece of land? Or is the owner of this parcel is planning on developing other land in the area? Is that right?
We own 240 approximately acres, this 21 on the west side of Baker and 220 approximately on the east side. There are 3 different projects involved on the east side of Baker. 90 acres for a nonprofit campus, and that site plan, I think, has been filed with the township. Many Hands is the everyday name. There's a different name for this nonprofit, but they go by Many Hands. The 110 approximately that we would be, that includes this 21 on the west side, but the additional 90 acres for land preservation. We have a 75 or 80 acre woods with vernal pools, and it's a significant natural area that would be part of the application to the LPC. And the third piece is approximately 45 acres. We have made application for annexation to the city of Dexter, and that would be for residential development, and that's up in the northeast corner of the parcel. The roads from the Dexter Crossing subdivision end at our property line. This would be a continuation of that, development of 100 plus or minus residential units.
I recall this discussion previously, and you represent the developer.
I am the developer.
Yeah.
I'm also the sole owner of the property at this point. Other partners have been retired.
And so this 21 acres, the plan here is this 21 acres goes to the township. And in exchange, you get favorable treatment of the other proposals. Is that the basic idea?
No, I wouldn't say that's the plan at all.
I'd love it if it was that transactional, but no. Our intention is to preserve this 21 acres along with the other 90 or so on the east side of Baker. We have held off on going ahead with our application to the LPC until more progress is made by the nonprofit on their site plan and more progress is made regarding the annexation application that we've made with Dexter. But it isn't just the way you said it.
It is not the way it's said.
It's not
Maybe
the
the
way-
opposite of the way you said
Because Tom, we don't need, land preservation didn't originally buy that piece of land because it was
it.
contaminated.
Recommended, yeah.
The
And so we
21
don't wanna spend money on a contaminated
Right.
parcel. Dave's proposing to remove the contamination so that we will buy it. So that's part of his offer to land preservation and
His
the
plan.
board to buy.
Okay. So the proposed transaction is the township purchases that 21 acres after it's been cleaned up.
That's part of the plan, yeah, that's proposal, yes.
Presumably with the other 90 acres on the east side. That would be simultaneous. We have not gone out, the LPC has not gone out for an appraisal of the property. We've kind of put the application on the shelf until some of these issues get dealt with.
But what we're dealing with right now is trying to just work out this access to so that you can clean up the remediation. And that's the thing that we're looking at right now.
Right, and so we'd like to come in through the old Sloan Nursery property, now Lotus, I believe is the name of it. And we've talked to the owners of Lotus and they are agreeable to us coming over their land. And as Barry said, then we would have to continue through the parcel you already own at the south end of
So you'd be asking really an easement, right? Like, you'd be asking for like an easement, a temporary easement.
I guess,
I mean-
if you wanna be that formal, I don't know what's needed.
No, but you wanna drive across property you don't own for a limited time to do something to better the land.
I agree with you.
I mean, that's the question. And obviously that goes to legal, in my opinion. And whether that's something that comes from the recommendation of the PVP or the LPC or the BOT, it all goes to think eventually.
It goes to legal, and our interest is in the wildlife preservation, the
Right, of course.
restoration of the property,
Right.
yeah.
And Barry knows more about the route that's proposed than I do at this point. He's calling off specifics about the site. I have not walked in from the Lotus side and figured out, he's further ahead than I am.
I have a question too, a couple of things. For one thing, some kind of estimation of how long you think this remediation might take. And the other thing is, will it interfere with the activity that happens in the park now as far as if you're driving, I'm assuming it's gonna be kind of big equipment that you're gonna be taking in and out of there.
I'm
And is,
told that it's a machine about the size of an F-150 pickup truck. And the engineer in his answers to Chris said the actual work, dirt removal and cover placement and so forth, is a matter of a few days, start to finish. 30 days was his estimate of how long this would take.
And is there gonna be a pretty good attempt to remove as much of the arsenic contaminated soil as possible, or is it just gonna be cover it?
Again, I've
That you
gotta
don't know
see-
the
I've gotta
plan.
see the plan from the engineer.
Because you just said remove. I noted,
Yeah.
yeah, you said remove, so if it involves removal, that's interesting, I would be interested.
Well, if I said remove, I didn't mean it.
Remediate.
You can't hold me to that one. But I think that would be interesting to know if you were gonna attempt to remove some of it. That, I don't know, I would feel better about that somehow, but I don't know what we're
All
talking
part of the
about.
plan that you're waiting for, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna
That's
tell
right,
you that,
yeah. So I think I meant a moment ago, when you heard remove, is any earth moving happening would be a matter of days. And I didn't mean removal is what I'm saying, but the actual work won't take that long.
So, but if you're moving soil in there to cover, or some, what are you gonna, see, you might not know this either. Whatever you're gonna cover it up with, whatever substrate, you're gonna probably bring that in with big, I'm thinking how big are the trucks and how is it gonna interfere with the park, or how are we gonna deal with the safety thing? We don't, Billy listening to music,
And
walking his
the
dog.
vehicle that I was referring to, I believe it's a drilling rig of some sort to do soil samples. The engineers want to understand the parcel better so that would be the F-150 sized rig. In terms of bringing fill material in, I haven't gotten that far yet. So, but that's a valid concern.
These are all the things that I would like to see, and I don't know, even though, we're just a stepping stone to all of this, I would like it if we could see that before it goes to the BOT.
I wonder if any,
I don't know if it's necessary, John.
It sounds like there's two purposes for which an easement might be requested. One is to conduct soil samples so that they can assess the extent and location of arsenic so that they can best determine how to remediate. Two, there's getting dirt scrapers and dozers and other stuff back there so they can get rid of this stuff. I mean, that conceptually comes to my mind as why one might need access across someone's property to get to the problem, to assess it and to fix it.
When you're talking about easement, are you saying a recorded document that?
Potentially.
For enforcement purposes?
Well, potentially, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
alright.
just like,
Yep.
like when a sidewalk goes in, you get a soil grading easement so you can go on the,
Right.
yeah, potentially, yeah.
So
So
Steve-
that,
well, I
again,
wonder
that's legal.
if any impact study or monitoring that occurs in the course of this, would it also apply to the township property that would be crossed, not just the remediation land, but the.
And again, Barry referred to a two-track being a pathway to this. If there's already a two-track, I think I see that as helpful for access and delivery of new soil or so forth. Let's wait for the plan.
And I would add also to minimize the impact on the land. If we're going in from the Baker Road side to the north, then you're hacking through a whole bunch of vegetation, putting in a culvert and access up a steep slope to get to the same spot. It's much shorter and I think less impactful to come in through the garden center.
I would actually like to, because I've been to that park a lot, teaching environmental ed. I would like to actually be reminded, because I have an idea of what you're talking about, the two-track, but I would actually like to see it, and that maybe it was just on a map, but if we could get something more visual so that that can just be part of the conversation for those that are not up to speed on that. Walk it or something. I mean, it could be a 10-minute walk, just so we have that in our brain, exactly what you're talking about. There are areas that are opened up and wider, but a formal two-track, I mean.
It's gotta be grown over now, so.
So anyway, that's another thing I would just like to have a better idea of what's going on.
So what's under discussion here is providing access to Dave
Yeah.
to allow him to, number one, study this. Number two, Second step would be remediate it, and that's without any commitment of the township to buy it or anything. Just, he wants to clean up his property
And we,
either going across our property gets to us.
and so my immediate thing is, how do we get him in there? And what's it gonna look like when he comes out?
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know?
My immediate thing is, I have only a vague idea of, I don't have a map in front of me, and I only have a vague, I haven't walked that entire parcel. I need to see a map first and then walk out there would be.
Yeah.
I would take the time to
I
walk
would
out
do it
there
too,
because I
yeah.
like to do that sort of thing.
We'd like to have a field trip
Well,
scheduled.
even when they come back, I mean, we could, yeah, that would be actually kind of helpful, probably to have a field trip.
Yeah, Anna had field trips for us.
Yeah,
We could do that.
yeah.
So we don't need an easement before we have a plan, correct? And the scope of the easement could be bifurcated for access for environmental testing and then access for remediation. I mean, that's how I see this.
Right.
So let's let him do his plan, and then when he comes back, we'll say, hey, Fink, what do you think of this? And, you know, personally, I'll say, getting a sense of the scope of the problem for that parcel would be something that everybody would want to know.
Exactly.
I think getting data can only help.
Yeah,
The best way to remediate it isn't something before this body at this juncture.
But access involves restoring the road or whatever, right, access point.
That Mariah is well equipped to
Yeah, okay.
parse that out.
And I wonder, you know, if we meet again in August, you know, it may not be the final, but you won't have
Could do
like
September.
enough plan. If we just do it in September, that's probably, I mean, if it's only gonna take a few days, they probably can still get it done this year.
Well,
Maybe.
if it gets,
If it gets that.
it has to go, it has to go to the board and legal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do easements take weeks, months?
No,
No.
no.
My previous career was owning the Charles Reinhardt real estate firm here in town. It doesn't take that long.
Okay.
She takes what she has and she,
Yeah, she can
Adjust
back
it.
that out.
okay.
Back to someone's comment, I'd like to get the work, the remediation done this year, which means before winter. So we're pressing to accomplish that kind of a schedule.
Well, then really the easement is our safeguard in a lot of ways. It's just limited access for one purpose, then we see what is needed and we decide if we want to be part of the next phase of that.
Yeah, and another thing, if we do that, kind of get that two-track used and opened up and things like that, we might want to find a way to keep, you know, Billy from running with this pickup truck and tearing up the place, because that happens in some of our other places, so that might be something to consider.
Well, one
But
thing
they
that's,
would have to go in through Lotus, but so that.
Again,
would be Billy
Lotus is
from
not
Lotus.
gonna allow everybody to
Yeah,
drive in and out of this.
I just can see the advantage if it can be safely done and then we have one large parcel as opposed to, you know, two separate ones. It's certainly to our advantage, and that other 90-acre plot of land would really be ideal to add to the property that we're currently.
The woods is contiguous to property you already own, or the LPC has purchased, so. I'm with you, folks. I'm a member of NATAC for Washtenaw County Natural Area Technical Advisory Committee. I am the evil real estate developer member. Everybody else is a scientist, but I'm with you, folks.
So we will meet again in September. Right? Will you wanna come
Well,
back when you have?
Maybe sooner.
Maybe
We don't know,
sooner?
it's up to his.
Yeah, let us
Well,
know.
as soon as we get it, we'll make it available to Barry, and your staff will know about Chris and, you know, and your new director, and I just learned that as I was listening to you earlier, so we'll move as quickly as we can.
Can we get a map now? Do you have a chart or something that shows where this
My engineers may, I don't,
track is?
but I'll ask for
Barry
that.
knows
On
what.
GIS.
Yeah.
If you go to
I don't know.
if you go to the county website, there you go, Chris. You can see there's a little. If you go a little bit to the south of there, there's right about there. There's a you can faintly see a little 2-track that runs to the west, just north of that pond, and then disappears a little bit further north of where the cursor is currently. Yeah, right through that open area. Yeah, right through there. You can see it, kind of a faint line through there. That's the old 2-track. It goes into that wooded area. It crosses the swale that comes out of that pond. And then you go a little bit further to the west and zoom in again, which gets rid of the layer of the preserves. You can see it come out the other side on the west side of that woody, brushy area there. That's where the 2-track is, and it crosses the swale right there. At grade with a culvert there. It's probably, I haven't been there for a while, but probably 6 foot deep, I'm going to say. So, like I said, it's the crossing is already there. Unlike on any other part of it. That's the only way that you can get across that swale, which continues all the way through the property to the north, and then links up with the stream with Mill Creek. So that's an existing cross.
All right, well, I think if, Barry, I don't know if you want to come kind of walk with a couple of us or something, just to give us feet on the floor.
Yeah, be glad to.
Okay, so I'd be happy to do that too.
I'll be happy to walk it as well, so.
Okay. I'm just a really visual person, so I'm just really seeing it might be a good idea.
And I have to run at this point. Thanks everyone. If you have any questions, give me a shout.
Okay,
Thank you, Barry.
thanks, Barry. Okay,
Done?
I think we're done.
Close with one more statement. I'm a 43-year resident of the township.
Well, thanks for coming in
Yeah,
and talking to us,
thank you.
because it's much easier to just
I'm with
do
you
this.
folks.
So, very good, okay.
Good.
Great, thanks.
Take care, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all.
We appreciate your time. Okay. Should we move on to the zero pathway? Phase 5? Is there an update for that? Or is that here?
Roy's not here, but I can report that it was approved. I think it was at the
Yeah.
last Board of Trustee meeting for the engineering.
Yeah,
for phase
yeah,
five.
let's not get over our skis too much. Engineering was approved for 2 paths. One is the Z Road, the continuation northward of the Z Road pathway to connect to the border trail. And that's the tricky part. By tricky, I mean real tricky, because of rivers and hairpin turns and topography and factories and railroad tracks and roads, and there's probably landmines or something that they gotta go around as well, but
And
it's
that's phase 5.
yeah, so it's the hard, phase 5, the hard part, closed paren. So it's really tricky, so it's the engineering and where do you put the road, where do you put the path? What do you gotta do by way of embankments and not fences, but the brick walls to stop the earth and how do you safely get over there? What does the road commission want by way of there's parking and so that's what that's for. Coming up with the funding is TBD, it's in the capital improvement plan, but so that's it. The other final engineering that was passed related to, and I think in my BOT report, but it had to do with the engineering for the extension eastward towards Z Road along Park Road of the road. Remember, the developer is required to put in asphalt paving from I want to say Jackson to Stabler down to Park and Park down to Arbor Point. So you're gonna have a 55-mile-an-hour asphalt road that goes to dirt road like that. So the goal is to get eventually it paved, and the path, there's gonna be a pathway there. So it's the eastern portion of Park Road with respect to paving the road surface and continuation of the non-motorized path to connect, those neighborhoods, Kirkway, Trail Woods, Scio Farms, maybe a new development in Honey Creek. So all that density, and actually including French Country Estates and Arbor Point, all that density with Zeeb Road and the commerce that exists there. So, but that's the engineering. Engineering isn't funding. Engineering is like, hey, this is what we want to do. Hey, RFP, hey, contracting construction companies, how much would you charge us to do this pathway or this roadway or both?
And at what point does the board take into account neighbor input, resident input?
Well, kind of always, people are free to weigh in on public comment and when the matter, ultimately it's when it wants to be funded. Is it a good idea? Is it worth funding? Is it so important that we should fund it sooner, or not as important that we can wait to fund it? That's the, the expression of the dollars to the project and when at that juncture, I would think.
So a lot of it is, how can we? And then do that.
Yeah.
Oh, the Sloan Bridge, we kind of talked about. I have a feeling that if we do all this other stuff at Sloan, there's a possibility, but that Sloan Bridge would be sweet because they're lovely pathways over there. But it's possible that we would be able to just get back over to the, that part using this remediated place, portion. But I think that at some point that bridge would be very nice to have. And I think parks we can pull it off. It's just, we have to go through engineering process. Get approval down the road. Yeah. Right, that's all I have. We can go, time for public comment again. Speak for 3 minutes, do the purview of the PPP. Is there anybody out there?
Oh, did you? Yes, actually, just two topics. One is, I think your question about when do residents weigh in? I think John had a really good answer, but as a resident who has started to really follow this, there's one other point that I would suggest for residents, and that is when that engineering report is presented. So when that engineering report shows up on the Board of Trustees agenda, that is a really good time for residents to see what's being proposed and if they might want to comment, because it's not final at that point, but it means that the engineers have finally given us a vision of it. So that would be a great time, I think, to weigh in for residents. So that was just one. The second thing I just want to do is more of a public service announcement about voting, is that the primary is coming up August 6th, but there's already AV voting going on. And the primary is frequently not as active as other elections, but this one is really important because whoever gets through the primary for Scio will be the ones on the ballot in November. So vote the primary, and 2, you are obligated, if you want to have a voice on Scio officials, to vote Democratic, because you can't split your vote in the primary. So 2 things is vote the primary, and if you want to have a voice in officials for Scio and your local voice, it would be vote Democratic. So that's it. Thank you.
Sorry, could you remind me of your name?
Yes, it's Judy DeVoe Monk.
I've seen other signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spell, yes.
What's your name, last name?
My last name is Moenck. And if you want my website, if anyone wants my website, it's actually scioleader.com. You don't even have to know my last name on that one. Scioleader.com. But voting is so important this time because after this, you won't have a choice in November. So. Very good. Thank you.
I don't see anyone's. Oh. Yes, it is. Thank you, Ron. It is raised. Go ahead. I will. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Go.
Great. So can we move for adjournment?
Yes.
Support, second, Patrick's motion by Riser.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So added that.
Thanks for running this.
Was it Patrick and Bryce?
Yeah, no problem. I don't.
I know.
It's like.
Thanks, Patrick.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself.